Black and White Cookie and cast from A Black and White Cookie, the world premiere coming at last, right?
Finally.
Are you right? At last. You know what I'm going to do? I am going to get rid of my self-view. I can do that. Yeah, good. Nobody wants to see me. Okay.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Well, you can, I think, but I don't have to see it. And I don't have to have it recorded on this end. So I'm honored, and I always want to be a gentleman and go ladies first, but ladies, forgive me. I'm going to go with Gary first. Is everybody okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Gary Morgenstein, my friend, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fine. I'm so thrilled to be able to say tomorrow night, A Black and White Cookie premieres.
Finally, right?
Finally, man plans, God lasts, we know.
Yeah, through everything you've been through. A little bit, Gary, about you and your background, if you would.
Well, A Black and White Cookie was supposed to premiere last March in New York, and something called COVID interrupted. And so we finally here at Silver Spring Stage. Thank you, Bill, and the wonderful people at Silver Spring Stage for opening your creative doors to us, and to this wonderful cast and this wonderful director who is also a member of the cast. And I'll just tell briefly what the play's about, and I'd like to just let them take over, because the wonder of theater is the collaborative process. And the play belongs to all of them now, and ultimately starting tomorrow with the audience. So A Black and White Cookie is about Harold Wilson, a gruff conservative senior African-American who finally reopens his Manhattan newsstand after shutting down because of the lockdown, the pandemic, and only to be hit with an exorbitant rent increase. And he has to retire to Florida with his niece. And so enter Albie Sands, an eccentric Jewish communist, sort of like, a fire-breathing Bernie Sanders. Well, that might be redundant. And who persuades him to take on the man and fight back. And together they form a very unlikely friendship to fight corporate greed and overcome prejudice. And just the underlying it is the fact that there is more that unites us than divides us.
Beautiful.
Remember that. Now, take it away, gang.
Okay. Do you want to introduce people, Gary? Do you want
I can just go,
any way you want.
Screen. So to Jackie Hume, the marvelous director who also stars as Carol Wilson.
Jackie, a little bit about yourself, if you would.
Sure. I'm Jacqueline Hume, like Zoom. I am Senegalese American. I am a teacher, language, negotiation, mediation teacher, actor, and a lawyer, non-practicing.
At this point, I'm supposed to say, so what do you do in your spare time? There is no spare time, right?
Do I have such a thing?
How did you get involved with this?
Well, during the pandemic, I started doing theater virtually, right, to make it safe and accessible to people from all over. And I started working with some playwrights just inadvertently. And I did a call to see if any playwrights wanted to do more virtual theater. And Gary was one of the people who sent me. Actually, with Gary, I worked with a UK company who did a Black and White Cookie, virtual reading of A Black and White Cookie, and they were looking for someone to play Carol, and an acquaintance got me involved. And after I did it, I loved it so much, I reached out to Gary and said, hey, would you mind if my virtual company does it? Because I loved it.
Yeah, Gary's a great guy. That's wonderful. Thank you. Gary, who's next?
Milani Silva, who is the narrator.
Melaine, I'm the narrator.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm the narrator. This is the 6th play I've narrated for Jackie since April. Most of her plays are very heavy and dark. So Gary's play is a breath of fresh air. Let's see. I'm a psychiatric nurse and addictions counselor.
Wow.
I did live on Delancey Street in the
You
70s.
did on Delancey. Oh,
Right
how
next,
cool.
right next to Ratner's,
Ah,
Oh, wow.
under the subway. So, you know, when the subway went over, the loft bed would shake.
Shake. Yeah, I bet. But how wonderful that had to be in the 70s, right?
It was exciting. It was
bet.
very exciting.
Oh, I remember being at Ratner's in the 70s too. So
I was so
that's-
sad to hear that it had closed.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very sad. What's it like narrating? What is it like? The job of the narrator. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, being in the sound booth is sort of scary because I'm not real technical. But but I've calmed down, and I think I've got it. It was much easier doing this on Zoom, but Jackie, you know, did the sound effects with, you know, music between each scene, and it's exciting to watch what's happening on stage. Real exciting.
But you can't get too caught up in it because you might have something to say soon, right?
Right, exactly. I'm basically watching the script diligently so I don't miss a cue.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Gary, who's next?
Paul Brewster, who plays Albie Sands.
All right. Good morning to you, Paul. Volume.
Got it?
There you are.
Yeah,
There you
no, I play Albie Sands. I'm Paul Brewster. It's interesting to play someone that's exactly your age, which is doesn't happen very often in theater. And a lot of my memories go back to the times Albie refers to back in the 1968 Democratic National Convention.
Yeah.
I was I was 19 at the time. So, I mean, I grew up with a lot of this, and it really, this role really resonates with me. I wasn't a radical, but I knew what they sounded like. And
because we were loud.
yes, absolutely. It was an amazing thing. I went to University of Maryland, and of course, the funny thing about that was that at some point in the 60s, so late 60s, that we had two closures of Route 1. One was like a ball game, and the other was the bombing of Cambodia. So I mean, and National Guard were on campus, and I was just trying to graduate. It's crazy. So anyway, this play really resonates with me, and I really enjoy playing the role. And as far as my background, I'm a computer science guy. I've been in computer science for like forever, and I'm still doing it. So
you're a tech guy. You are a tech guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, everybody got their limitations. And I did a lot of Zoom theater with Jackie. Jackie and I got involved very early on, and I can't count the number of shows I've done on Zoom, and produced some recently, directed some, acted in them.
That's wonderful.
Fun.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Gary, who's next?
Helen Mao Chang, who plays Jan Pham.
Helen, good morning to you. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Morning. Yes, I am I'm a freelance writer, an English teacher, where I taught high school English a long time ago, but I still do some teaching, as well as part of my freelance writing is like writing, answering literature questions. I also work as a standardized patient, which is actors who are hired by medical schools to teach, help teach clinical skills to medical students and other healthcare providers, communication skills, and things that are just very important that weren't really emphasized until I'd say the past few decades. But you can see the change when you go to healthcare workers and physicians about how they communicate with you. I also wrote 3 Zoom plays, and Jackie directed all 3 of them. And then she was in 2 of them. Actually, she was in 3 of them. One of the for the most part, the public viewings, she was in 2 of them. And so the way I became involved in this also is that Jackie had asked me when we had done the reading of this play first, which I really enjoyed. And then earlier in the summer, when it seemed like life was getting back to normal, and she said, "Oh, do you want to do this in person?" I said, "Oh, well, that would be wonderful." And then of course things changed and with the Delta variant and things got a little scary again. But anyway, I very much enjoy it. And I am so thankful that she asked me, and that I've been working with this cast and crew and able to speak with Gary about his playwriting process.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. Gary, who's next?
Bill Herbert, and I know I've messed up your name. You're the chairman of the board, aren't you, of Silver Spring Stage?
I am the chairman of the board at Silver Spring Stage.
It's kind of like the Frank Sinatra of indie theater in Maryland. I mean.
Hardly. Not even close.
Tell us about yourself.
I am a semi-retired writing, editing consultant who works in international development, primarily World Bank and large organizations like that. I'm also a director, actor, and producer. And of course, being chairman of the board on a working board, mind you, we have no employees. We do all the work that makes this happen.
That's unusual, isn't it?
It is. It's not unusual in community theater.
Okay.
Where everyone is a volunteer. Some really large community theaters actually do have employees, and the whole thing. You actually have 2 very good ones in Youngstown, the Youngstown Playhouse and Hopewell Theater, both of which are actually older than our theater, as far as I can tell.
We do have a lot of theater. We got the Millennial Theater. We've got some new ones, and thank you for recognizing that. They'll be thrilled.
It's the community theater is an important place, has an important place in theater in the United States. There's more theater activity at that level than there is at the professional level. More people are involved in community theater than in professional theater. And it's a very old kind of tradition at this point. And there's a lot of variable quality, of course, when you're doing it's many people just see it as, oh, that's just amateur theatricals, but many of the people that are involved, myself included, have had at one time or another professional aspirations in theater, degrees in theater, and lots of background in theater. So it's not unusual for people who are in community theater to have a very, very strong connection to it. I actually did not do theater for many years. And when I retired in 2013, just before I retired, I came back to it. I had been back in the 80s. I was attempting to be a professional actor in New York City.
Wow. How did it come together with the Black and White Cookie with Gary?
Well, let me explain that actually. Black and White Cookie kind of came to us through a back door, in a sense. Jackie is actually on our board. I don't think she mentioned that in her long list of things.
Jackie, of course you are. I mean, you're also anything else, Jackie? That you might tell us?
But what happened was, when it's, as you can imagine, it's been very difficult to reopen theaters, and this is across the board. Everyone is having these problems with COVID going on. Very difficult to get things started up again. And one of the problems that we had was that when we finally did settle on a show that we wanted to do in our fall season, and we tried to get the rights, we couldn't get the rights. The whole thing fell through. And then we were kind of stuck for a bit because we didn't know what to do. We were up against deadlines for, can be very tight trying to get these things done. And Jackie came to us and said, I've got a couple of scripts kicking around that maybe we could use one of those. And this was one of them. So we took a look at it and we said, yeah, that kind of fits with what we're trying to do right now, because one of the other things that's happened, of course, during the last 2 years is the racial reckoning that we've been working through. And one of the things that we're trying to do at our theater, and I know other theaters are trying to do this as well, is to do a better job of bringing in the wider community that we live in. And of course, we live in suburban Maryland outside of Washington, D.C. This is an incredibly diverse area. So trying to connect all of those threads is something of a challenge. And this play really kind of helps us do that.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Gary, who's next?
We have Robert Howard playing Mitchell Reed.
Robert, good morning. Welcome. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Good morning. As Gary said, my name's Robert Howard. I am playing Mitchell Reed and a bunch of other minor characters who appear throughout. I am a mathematics tutor here in Central Maryland, and I love doing theater and acting as a hobby. I've been doing Zoom theater with Jackie for a bit over a year now. And when it came to being recruited in this play, I think I was called in like halfway through the first rehearsal because Jackie messaged me saying, "Hey, are you free? You want to hop in and rehearse something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And so I came on, and all of a sudden it was my scene. And so that's how I got involved with this production.
What's it been like for you?
Oh, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoy this script and how strong the dynamic is between the friends. And I enjoy playing the sort of characters who, I don't want to say a bad guy, but he certainly isn't a good guy either.
Get to stretch out a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's been great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Elvin, good morning to you. Welcome. How are you doing? Tell us about yourself. I'm not getting any audio. Is it me?
No, yeah, we can't hear you, Melvin.
We're talking about a black and white cookie, which premieres tomorrow. And I've got writer Gary Morgenstein and cast. No.
Yep.
Yeah, you may have to leave and come back, Melvin. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Come back soon.
All
Okay.
right.
All
Well,
right.
Melvin plays Harold Wilson.
Please. Yeah. Thanks. Go ahead.
And as Robert said, the dynamic between him and Albie is a lot of fun. It is just a lot of fun. They just, when you ask writers how you came up with stories, and sometimes they get very, and Helen is also a writer, and we have other writers here. You could get very weighty and say, "Oh, well, I was trying to, capture the essence of God," and sometimes it just really, it just pops into your head. And I was at a family gathering,
Funny, Gary.
actually in New Jersey, and I was maybe a little bloated from the baked ziti, and I was just kind of sitting there, and suddenly Harold and Albie appeared, and that's it. This is welcome to the mental illness known as writing, and so I said, "Well, hello, welcome, join the club." All the other people running around in my head, and so that's really these characters just kind of defined what I thought about people coming together. And that's very important to me. And what I also wanted to do, to Bill's earlier point, is discuss prejudice, but look at prejudice from the perspective of what happens when good people are bigoted. Because we know all about, I'm here in Brooklyn, I don't know how it is elsewhere, but I'm really not too worried about the Nazis marching outside my apartment. It's the good people who look away and the good people who tolerate prejudice and who say, well, you know how those people are. And in this instance, it happens to be about Jews, but we're all on this telecast, those people, you people. And so I wanted to explore how prejudice comes about, to show it without excusing it or justifying it. So we might dare to actually understand. And that's, a narrow line to walk in these times where people yell first rather than,
People
actually
don't listen.
might
People
actually
don't
listen.
Yeah.
And I think so that was it. And now we have Melvin back.
Melvin, let's hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Yay. Welcome. Welcome back.
Thank you. Melvin Smith, I'm playing Harold Wilson. It's a very interesting character for me. He's a 67-year-old African-American, conservative African-American, which completely opposite of what I am. Let me go back. I got involved with this. I got involved with Jackie with this. I actually met Jackie right before the pandemic happened and everything was closed down. She was at the first play I did in Silver Spring, and I met her there, and we connected. And we've done several plays since then, virtual plays. Just recently finished my first live play since the pandemic. About a month ago, we did a version of Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, and we did that one live. And that was very interesting, very dark. I'm actually a labor worker. I work with a labor union and with transportation labor, and that's my regular job. But I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this process. I love the writing in this play. I love plays that deal with the dynamics of relationships, any type of relationships, and how people interact with each other, good or bad, and how any relationship can be a good relationship. And this is shown that you can create, because we have so much more in common with each other.
Yeah.
And we all want the same thing. We all trying to live a good, happy life. That's what we all want. We have different means of doing that, but that's our ultimate goal. And I think these characters are just trying to gain some equality and gain some independence and just have a good life. And I think they're trying to help each other attain that goal.
That's wonderful. Gary, when you hear that, that's got to feel really good.
Oh, yeah.
To hear everybody
brings-
talk
yes.
about the writing. I mean,
Yes.
and the characters.
Yes, it brings tears to my eyes. Thank you, Melvin.
You have
And
said
you
to
are-
me before that some of the characters write themselves. I'll never forget you saying that.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and again, sounds like very weird and very precious.
Sounds great.
But yes, I mean, it is. You create the characters are alive in your head, and they do take over the scene. And sometimes it's like, schmuck, what are you doing? I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't behave like that. And it's like, no, come on, stop it. But it's really true. And so many writers will talk about that. And it's a wonderful feeling. But more so is when you write plays and you turn it over to wonderful people, very gifted, talented, dedicated people like this, who invested their own, feelings. I mean, I want to hear what they have to say about how they invest this character, because at the end of the day, it's I mean, I don't want to diss myself, but it's just words on a page. Everyone
it
up
to
here
life.
is bringing it to life. It's not like writing a novel where that's it. That it is words on a page.
Yeah.
but
That's a good
this
point.
is a whole different thing. So I'm so excited to see it.
And that's interesting because, like you say, it's not like a novel where that's it. You've got people that are actually bringing those characters to life.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've been, I'm in Brooklyn and they're rehearsing in Maryland, which is just a wonderful feeling for me. It's just like, I just trust them. And I think we've all in theater have been in situations where we trusted people and was like, oh God, what did I just
What are they
see?
doing?
Right? Yeah. We've all had those stories, but this is just really wonderful. I mean, Jackie is just such a wonderful director. I want to hear what Jackie thinks about directing.
I want to hear from Jackie too. What is it like directing people in a play, in this play in particular? What is it like for you, Jackie?
I mean, my directing style is I try to be as collaborative as possible. I have a vision, but I love seeing what people choose to do and then depending on their choices, my vision also can adapt and change. I feel like the director is like the conductor in many ways, and it's beautiful to put all of the pieces together
Yes.
of, you know, the story, the life of the people, the music, the lighting, etc. And it's been a lot of fun. It's yeah, this is a great group of people. So
Bill, I want to ask you again, live theater, which so many people have missed for so long. And I think it's great that Zoom is around and people have been able to do it. I know, you know, for me, for one who says that a good weekend for me is if I don't have to put my shoes on. So, you know, with Zoom, I don't have to put my shoes on. I can be in my SpongeBob jammy bottoms and a old tie-dye t-shirt that's probably, I don't know, 40 years old. That I still, even though it's falling off me, I won't let my wife throw it away. But that again, but there's something about that group experience. There's something about having everybody together physically and then having a physical audience. How has it been for you through the pandemic, and what's it like now?
Well, we've done, by the way, don't have my shoes on.
You're on Zoom, right? You don't have to.
Right.
Barefoot.
I put on this shirt just for the occasion. We've done.
We won't ask you about pants, so go ahead.
Well, Silver Spring Stage has done a number of Zoom productions over the last 18 months. Actually, we've done several different kinds of things. We've done Zoom, pure Zoom like we're doing right now. We've also done recorded things, shows that we've performed on the stage and recorded and then put up as YouTube videos. Last year at Christmas time, we always do a family show for Christmas. Instead of doing a full production of something, I arranged an audio recording of A Christmas Carol. And so we've done a number of those kinds of things, and it's certainly nowhere near. I have not done a Zoom play myself. I just kind of don't want to, for that very reason, because theater to me is live theater. It is the interaction between the audience and the performer that really makes it happen. And that you don't have that on Zoom. So it is a very different kind of medium, and it's not even television. Because it's essentially underproduced, if you will, for TV or movie. So it's kind of neither this nor that. And while it helped us to kind of keep the people who are connected with our theater connected to us to some degree, it was not an adequate substitute for having live theater. So we're really excited to be coming back, and we've got this show as kind of our soft reopening. We're going to have small houses for this show, only one weekend. It's also an attempt for us an opportunity for us to learn how the systems that we've put in place to deal with COVID, how that's all going to work for us.
That's good, yeah.
And then we're going to have our big real reopening is going to be our Christmas show this year, which is going to be A Christmas Story, the adaptation of the novel, the film. It's been all over the place. Of course, everybody knows that story from Cleveland, Ohio.
You do a lot of nice shouting out to the area. Thanks, Bill.
Shouting out, yeah, why not? I went to school in Ohio. I'm a Miami and Ohio State graduate.
Oh, wow, a lot of Ohio State fans. Yeah, it's you know. Yeah.
So it's been a way for us to stay connected. It's been a way for us to have a trickle of money, and I mean trickle because it's not an effective way to make money either. People are less willing to pay for Zoom shows than they are for other shows. So it's definitely been financially difficult. Fortunately, we have a solid base of donors that have really kind of helped us stay alive through this period. And with a little help from our landlord as well. I should shout out to him, to them.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's wonderful. So that's wonderful. The understanding, to be understanding and to work with you. You know, again, all of us seeing it come out wherever we're at. I don't want to say for sure because no one knows for sure, but seeing us where we are today, and you're able to open for live theater tomorrow again, which I think is wonderful with Gary Morgenstein's A Black and White Cookie. Helen, tell us a little bit more about your character. And you know, again, I'm in awe of people that do what you all do, what you do, how you get, I'll do air quotes, no one's going to see, into character. I don't know how you do somebody, you know, I don't know how you do that. Tell me a little bit about your character and how you do that.
Okay, I play Jan Pham, and I am actually the landlord who has increased the rent to an exorbitant rate. So so that's the one that's causing the main conflict. And what's interesting is I've never been a landlord. I haven't owned property. Besides with my husband in the house. But what I mean is I haven't owned rental property before.
Yeah.
So I'm not someone who knows much about this position. And it was actually interesting. And it was just the other day when I was talking to Jackie, because Jackie said that she had worked for was real estate attorneys and dealing with tenants and evictions. And I had to rethink, because I had thought about this before, but it was good to be reminded of the fact that my character has many tenants. And I don't really, I mean, it's just another day in the office is evicting someone. It's not, and I have to be that way. I can't think about, you're actually changing somebody's life. Because if I think that I'm not going to be able to do my job. And that's the thing I found with this character, was that side was a lot more difficult for me to relate to. I could relate more towards the side of really feeling bad, feeling that I was uprooting somebody. And especially given this person's past, which I learn about in the scene, that I'm really feeling much more sympathetic, but I have to stop myself because I'm a landlord. I'm a business person, and I can't not increase the rate, the rent on people, for tenants, and just keep feeling bad for everybody. And then I'm just going to go under. So that was a difficulty of getting into character, but it was very helpful when I was talking to Jackie. And then when I was thinking about friends who are landlords, and just thinking about like their side, it's always thinking about, as an actor and as anybody I think really should do, is think about, try to think from different points of view. You don't have to agree with all of them, but you at least try to see from that point of view, at least to get some understanding. You may still come down on the side of, well, I see this side and I see this side, but I'm still going to go with this side, even though I can kind of understand that side. But that is something I really had to do with this character, to sort of grasp like the two, the conflict within her when dealing with trying to evict somebody who is not in a good situation.
Yeah, and again, we've seen through the pandemic, and I don't want to do too much commentary, but we've seen, landlords have bills to pay also. It's for the most compassionate, loving, empathetic person, it's still a tough call, because if you're not, if you've got a mortgage on that building, forgive me for going on. I'm gonna stop myself right after. If you've got a mortgage on that building though, and you've got to pay the bank, let's say, and you want to let your tenants slide, and then you can't pay the bank, and then everybody's gone. If you've got people that are dependent on you, so it's tough. But I like what you say about trying to get it from someone else's perspective, and I think that's what and listening. That's something that we need to make sure we have enough of in America today, listening to each other. And I think that's what Gary Morgenstein's play, A Black and White Cookie, does, is it shows those interactions and listening. Paul, for you were saying, again, the character, you were not a radical. You're not, what is it like getting into character for you?
Well, I'm not several things. I'm not homeless, which is one thing. I'm not Jewish, which is another thing.
That's two.
That's two. And I'm not a communist. So
that's three.
I got 3 strikes. But I can tell you that I grew up in Baltimore in an inner city school for and not a real inner city school, but back in the days of segregation, it was the world was still there, and Baltimore was a place to learn about it. And I also I was a history major, and I'm a poli-sci kind of person that spent a lot of time thinking about these ideas. So these ideas that I'm espousing, which are, are not beyond my belief system. All I have to do is exaggerate one part of my personality to find it. It's a question of finding it within yourself and then putting that as the facet you see. I see ourselves. I mean, if you ever, those little calendars that came out with multi-sided, they were hex or whatever, they were a shape, a flat shape. They sat on one side, and then as you turned them, they sat.
Oh, yeah, on a desk. Yeah,
a desk. I think of myself as that. Each individual face of that is very different. People who know me from other places might not even understand that I really do understand and support some of the things I'm saying, but I don't, it's like pushing that edge of your work, because otherwise, a lot of this stuff, if it's wonderful to be given the opportunity. And thank you, Gary, because some of these things don't get heard anymore. I mean, some of the thoughts about, there's an example. I have one statement. Jackie says, as Carol says, why didn't you talk about Harold being Black? And I go back and I say, we're all part of one oppressed class. And that thought hasn't been available in the United States for a long, long time. And it's just not expressed. People may understand it and see it, but it seems to have gone out in the 30s. I can't even find a time at which there was an understanding, and clearly Gary's given me the language and pulled some language from places that, just on the edge of Marxist theory, but it's wonderful stuff to be able to say it. And truthfully, I'm not playing, this is not a mentally ill guy. In general, this is a guy that really has absorbed a point of view that is gone from American politics, gone from our way of thinking, but is still understandable and real.
Gary, when you hear that, that's got to just make you feel incredible. What's that like when you hear that?
Well, because theater is about expressing things which haven't been expressed, and pushing and taking, pushing thoughts and making people think and feel. So, yeah, I mean, I think so much of politics now is so laden with polarization that it's like Paul says, it's nice to step back and say, wow, that's true. It's just a nice, positive thought. And I think you've got to get that out. You've got to get that out. You've got to risk it.
That's incredible. Again, a black and white cookie, the world premiere, finally, Gary, right? Finally,
yes,
tomorrow. Finally.
I'm curious, Melvin, so how's it for you playing a conservative?
Well, the thing about it, the way I look at it, Harold is, he's conservative, but he's a human. He's dealing with a whole lot of loss. He lost his friends in the Marine. He lost his wife. His house is falling apart. He's losing his house. Now he's about to lose his newsstand. So what I'm playing is that person, not the conservative, not the Ronald Reagan lover. It's just that he's trying to find some joy and happiness. And he actually finds it in people. And he has it with the Chinese store, food store, and he finds it in the Albi. So he treasures relationships, and from what I can tell, but he's bitter because of his lostness, everything he's lost. So he's trying to find his joy again. He's trying to find his joy in life, because he has no joy at home. He has no joy with any real relationship right now. So that's what he's going through. So even though he sounds strong and he sounds sure of himself, he's suffering. He's actually suffering, and he's trying to get over his pain. So that's what I'm playing. As far as the conservative part, the conservative, yeah, that was like I had to feed into that as well, which was a stretch to get into that. But yeah, but I'm looking more into him as a person and what he's dealing with emotionally and mentally, what he's dealing with.
That's interesting. Robert, for you, playing your role?
So for me, when it came to playing Mitchell, I took a very different approach from some of the other actors when it came to like trying to find the humanity of their characters and their people, because Mitchell comes across to me and I try to play him as very amoral. He really just does not care about the people's strifes that he gets involved in. He's really only there because his dad told him to go there. And you can sense that he just doesn't want to be there. He's writing an article as a favor for his dad about this on his Proletariat Awake website, but he's really more concerned about going to his volunteer position at the mayor's office than he is about working with Harold and Albie to try and fight rent strike. So for me, I when developing this, I took on the approach of, again, that person who is really just doing this because his dad wants him to, and is around these two people who he doesn't really know very well, not very comfortable around, really doesn't want to be there. And so I approached it, instead of looking for the humanity, I'm looking at the amorality that he sort of feels about the whole thing.
Interesting. That's interesting. You know, when I'm thinking, and I was going to say to Gary, to everyone, maybe we all need to, at some point in our life, do acting. And I'm not talking about professionally or community theater or anything, but to somehow make ourselves see things from other people's perspective. What I'm hearing is how different, and how when you're playing that character, you know, when you get into it, and a greater ability to listen and understand each other, which is dare I say, Gary, the objective.
Well, yes, and I'd love Jackie, who, let's not forget that she's the incomparable director, but she also plays Carol Wilson. So she has to overcome her feelings about Albie.
Tell us, Jackie, tell us.
Yes, it's so interesting because Carol is not me at all.
I'm getting the characters. None of you are the characters, right? I mean, I guess for better, for worse, should I say? I don't know.
I mean, it's totally fine. There are things that we have in common. For example, love of family, right? She loves her uncle very, very, very much. Her uncle is almost like a father to her. And I could totally understand that. You know, in my culture, aunts and uncles are like parents as well. And they're very near and dear to us. Her prejudices, though, are not my own. And it's interesting. I love the voyage that Carol goes through in terms of having these strong prejudices against Jewish people and white people, and how her interaction with Albie and seeing the relationship between Albie and her uncle really changes her point of view and the way that she feels about a whole category of people. And it's beautiful. I love it.
I've got to ask, Melaine, I've got to ask you, I can't imagine narrating, because I don't know how you stay focused with the play going on. I mean, I know you've got a job to do. I get that. And your job is to narrate. But I'm kind of in awe as I'm thinking about all of you, you're getting in character, and I'm thinking about watching a play, because you've got to be knowing what's going on and knowing the cues and knowing when you've got to come in. How do you stay, should I say dual focused? Or what? You tell me. You're all the experts here. I'm just this guy. I'm just this guy.
I just have to listen. I just have to pay attention and listen to every word. I have to clear my mind and listen to every word that's being said, so that I'm able to do the right thing. Yeah. It's sort of confusing. I'm not sure how I do it either.
but obviously you do it well, right? Well, because I'm thinking I get fantasizing of myself doing that in the booth and like watching the play and getting really into it. And somebody say, Louie, come on. You gotta, narrate. You're the narrator, not. So I've got to think that's interesting how you do that and how you put it all together. And Jackie, I've got to ask you, I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, but is everybody okay time-wise? A few more minutes. Okay. Jackie, I've got to ask you again, directing and acting in the play. When I hear things like that, or if I've seen a movie where there's a, how do you do that?
I mean, it's been made easier because we did this via Zoom, right? We spent some time already with these characters, and directing via Zoom is a lot easier than directing in person. But because we had already done this legwork beforehand, when we came to do it in person, it was so much easier for me to pay attention as both director and as Carol, because Carol, I had already established who Carol was. And how Carol is. And so I didn't have to focus on that as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting though. And the more I'm hearing this, the more I'm thinking everybody, I think, should have to be an actor at some point, and maybe a director, to learn how to say things, for someone not to take it critically. I'm thinking of our world today. And again, not too much commentary, but the difference in how I see the world that I'm in, and how, it's so easy to say the media, but so easy to see how things are portrayed. We see our commonality, I think most people listen. I think most people hear each other. I hope most people are empathetic with each other. But I'm thinking now, it's like blowing my mind from an acting, taking on a character that's not you. How could I play somebody that has I'd be like freaked out if it was somebody that was a different personality, that was this or that or whatever. And then having a director say, and I know you don't say it like this, Jackie, but no, Louie, that's not right. I'm sure you have a very nice way of saying it with people, but and then having someone get you back on that path, it's got to be an incredible experience for people. And more I'm thinking we should all go through that at some point. Might make us a better world. Am I making any sense? Anybody? Am I just going off?
Having been on both sides of that equation as director and as actor, Melvin said it pretty well, actually, that the character that you have on stage is drawn from yourself. And there is a certain amount of fear in that, because sometimes you discover things in yourself that you did not know were there. And that can be quite a frightening revelation about yourself.
And maybe very therapeutic.
It is therapeutic to a degree. You're always taught as an actor that, this isn't therapy. You need therapy, you go to therapy.
Oh, is that right?
You don't work it out on stage. That's not the place to be doing that. But there is an element of that in what you're doing, because it is a process of self-discovery always, as an actor.
I just think it's absolutely fascinating. Gary, how does this feel to you? Opening
This
night
is great.
tomorrow?
I know we're running out of time, but I want to go back to something that Bill said.
Let me do this real
about-
quick. Gary, let me interrupt you for 30 seconds. Louie B Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartlands, copyright B Free Radio Limited 2021, produced by lovely Miss Bunnyface in cooperation with White Rabbit Productions. Go, Gary. Sorry.
Wow, that was fast.
No, I hate to sounding like the guy at the bottom of an ad that's doing a disclaimer.
The third race in an aqueduct. Because what Bill was talking about with independent theater, it's the lifeblood of theater. And you could talk all about Broadway. Yeah, that's the glitzy, elitist theater gods, and we all worry about the Disney Nederlander Schubert bottom line. I know I'm really worried about that, as all of you. But when you look at the talent here and the commitment and the dedication, this is what theater is. It's actors and directors and people like this and theaters like the Silver Spring Stage, which makes it possible. And we learned that from the pandemic, through Zoom by connecting with each other and working with artists all around the country and all around the world. And I think that's really what's the most beautiful thing.
And we've got those links up at ssstage.org, ssstage.org, or you can go to louisfreeshow.com, wfmj.com, etc. What an honor to have you all on. This is wonderful and delightful and very, very exciting. And Gary, I know you've looked forward to this for a long time for it to be on stage, and you all are just amazing and wonderful. I'm really, really grateful to have had the opportunity to talk with you all. You know, I shouldn't say on air, but maybe we should do this again next week and find out how everything went down. Whatever. I'm sorry, Gary. I'll be in touch with you.
All right, we'll talk.
If you all want to
We'll
do that,
talk.
it'd be an honor to have you all back. Thank you all. It's truly an honor. Truly my honor.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Louie.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Folks, how
Bye-bye.
wonderful, how wonderful. And if you're in the area and you can listen to that,
Bye, everyone.